GTA 6 just got announced for 2025. The craziest part, this is coming out nearly 12 years after GTA 5. To put that into perspective, the first wave of the Black Plague only lasted about 4 years. The Black Plague actually drops more frequently than Rockstar makes games. Now, the GTA franchise is one that I've been a fan of since the release of Vice City, and the radio stations in GTA helped to develop my taste in music. I want to go over how hip-hop has evolved over the past 11 years since GTA 5 came out as we look forward to GTA 6 releasing. GTA 5 was unlike any other game in 2013. Sure, there were games with open worlds and games where you rob people and steal cars, but the technical achievement they accomplished on the Xbox 360 and the PS3 was something nobody had really expected. To this day, GTA is talked about fondly by fans, being repackaged and reshaped into future generations of consoles, as well as being adapted to PC, where the game would be flooded with modding systems that would have people like Soulja Boy roleplaying as an actual good rapper. I think it's fairly safe to say that GTA has had a massive impact on not only the gaming industry, but on multiple generations of people. If you were to ask someone on the sidewalk if they know what GTA is, they'd probably call you a loser, but they definitely do know what you're talking about. And at least you went outside and tried to socialize with someone for once. Now, I played a lot of GTA games when I was younger, and that's probably not something that I should admit, but there you go. My brother would play Vice City on our PlayStation 2 and would use every cheat code in existence so that he did not have to pass me the controller once he died. Dick move. GTA 4 is the game I probably remember the most vividly in terms of story, as I replayed it 4 or 5 times, but San Andreas was the first GTA game that I actually properly played from start to finish. In all honesty, even with newer releases, there is no real game like San Andreas. CJ, as a character whose decisions unintentionally hurt many members of his family and friends, was a really compelling introductory narrative, and his path to atonement but also betrayal is one that tends to resonate with me the most. San Andreas itself, whilst it was a bitch to navigate at times, felt so much more alive to me in comparison to Vice City, and that's probably down to my brother's usage of cheat codes, but nonetheless, the bizarre but also serious nature of the setting was something that helped ease me into playing more of the games in the series. Just don't talk to me about that fucking train mission. If I'd known that Big Smoke was going to betray me later on, I swear to God I would have killed him and just been done with it then and there, but motherfucker.
All we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ!
Anyway, it was a plus in this game that I could actually use a helicopter. Every time my brother or I would try and get into a helicopter in Vice City, that shit would freeze instantly. If you remember the PlayStation start screen, it is ingrained in my memory. It was so touch and go, and not to mention that it would take fucking forever to complete. With San Andreas, I didn't have to worry about that as much. It was my first full exposure to hip-hop music due to the West Coast influence inspired by the setting. Upon reflection, I started to recognize that a lot of the music on the radio stations in San Andreas actually reflects a lot of my music taste today. I mean, this game was my first exposure to Ice Cube outside of the Are We There Yet movies, which is kind of a sad thing to say, but I don't know, I'm in a different generation, man, I'm sorry. It Was a Good Day is the song that I actually picture along with my time playing San Andreas. It was also my first exposure to NWA, Dr. Dre, Pac, amongst others. Even with songs like Barracuda, I'm immediately taken back to the time I crashed the Hydra, and please don't fucking ask me about that, I don't want to talk about it. It's also interesting how hip-hop was integrated not only into the music within the game, but directly into the narrative as well. I mean, it's quite obvious to see how Ryder is supposed to look like Eazy-E, and many fans have speculated that the story moments between Ryder/Smoke and CJ and Sweet are supposed to represent the split of NWA. If this is true, it was kind of poorly executed, as killing Ryder was extremely anticlimactic, but nonetheless, it's a good theory. Regardless, the GTA brand is international at this point, with artists across a multitude of genres making reference to the game's existence. The one that springs to mind to me the most would be somebody like Denzel Curry, who's made a number of different references to the different games and situations. But there's also a situation like with the YBN group having met while playing GTA Online, which I don't know why they would admit that, but I guess we're all just admitting shit that we probably shouldn't. So since we're at GTA 5, let's talk about hip-hop at that time. Now, 2013, what was going on? To be honest, I kind of underestimated how big of a year 2013 was for hip-hop. It surprisingly had a large number of artists dropping major projects, and the landscape of music was completely different to what it is now. I mean, Drake released arguably his best album of all time with Nothing Was the Same. Eminem was still relevant, sold 750,000 albums first week with the Marshall Mathers LP 2, and Kanye and J. Cole both released albums on the same day in 2013, with Yeezus versus Born Sinner. And Born Sinner is honestly my favorite J. Cole album of all time. I mean, we could also look at the freshman list too, which included the likes of Logic, Schoolboy Q, and Chief Keef, who was only 18 at the time. It also included none other than Travis Scott and Joey Badass, who would have been around 17 to 18 at the time as well. Considering this list and also the 2012 XXL freshman list, where only Future seems to be still relevant, it was a super strong year for new artists, and also a lot of these artists seemed to maintain their longevity. Now, also at this time, Spotify was only launched in 2011 in the US, so most of the music was still purchased hard copy or digitally. So to break that down, that would mean that most of the 750,000 people that counted as a sale first week for the Marshall Mathers LP in 2013 physically or digitally purchased the entire album without any idea of whether or not it would be good, which seems like a crazy concept now. But how was hip-hop represented in GTA 5? I mean, this time they were going back to San Andreas kind of, via Los Santos, and they were still maintaining certain themes that were similar to San Andreas. I do think, though, there was a lot more subtlety this time in the integration of hip-hop. I mean, you have someone like Big Boy, who was on Radio Los Santos, returning to the series after voicing Big Bear in San Andreas. As well, after a few future updates, Dr. Dre would appear in GTA Online, which I never played, but we'll get to in a minute. Overall, though, there did not seem to be as big of a focus on developing a music narrative within the actual story. However, this is not to say that GTA 5 did not have any influence. For me, GTA 5 was the exposure point for a lot of new artists that I had never listened to prior, and a lot of these artists have gone on to become major staples within my playlists. This Garbage by Tyler, the Creator, was also my first time hearing his music as well, and when I went to go look up the rest of his music, I was absolutely horrified. But I still tried to give it a shot, and he's gone on to be one of my most streamed artists the past 5 years. See, these games are a lot more than sequences of shooting galleries and robberies. As with those things, even as a child, they are understood to be inherently bad. But with music, there's a lot more of an opportunity to influence what a person hears and to represent what is being described in some of the music. In all honesty, I probably would not be as big into hip-hop if it weren't for playing a lot of these games in this series. It's a lot more of an opening door into the genre than a lot of people give it credit for. So 11 years later, GTA 6 is coming out next year. How are we feeling about hip-hop right now? Well, if I'm honest, and this is totally just my opinion, it's in a complete opposite set of affairs than things were in 2013. Where in 2013, hip-hop was beginning to become the focal point genre amongst both casual and hardcore music fans, it seems to have peaked between 2016 to 2018, and has now led to a situation where gimmicks and certain BPMs are a priority in order to gain traction, and artist expression has somewhat fallen to the wayside. Spotify and Apple Music came in and completely changed the way in which people consume music, and this isn't an inherently bad thing. In fact, for artists who are looking to gain exposure, it's a great thing. But sometimes having too much access dulls the connection someone has to a certain project or artist. I mean, for the most part now, people don't really seem to buy albums physically, outside of vinyl, which has had a resurrection as of late. People used to stand outside of stores in the middle of the rain to pick up a CD, and they wouldn't know whether it was good or bad until they had paid full retail price. Now people just wait in their homes until midnight, listen to your album for 15 minutes, wait for their favorite music reviewer to pass their verdict on Twitter, and if they don't like it, they'll tweet at the artist telling them that they're trash, and the cycle will repeat itself for years and years. I mean, at this point, because of the lack of physical sales, first week sales are a terrible demographic to use for judging the success of a project, as they have never been so low. This also ties into the revenue retained by artists, as it's also extremely low. As for millions of streams, they practically only get pennies. As well, the same artists that were starting to buzz back in 2013, your Kendricks, Coles, Drakes, etc., 11 years later are considered the best rappers in the game. Surprisingly though, people are mentioning their retirement from hip-hop, but don't seem to indicate who would be able to replicate not only their numbers, but also their quality of music. There are also cases of rappers that were first getting their shine back in 2013 who have completely fallen off the map. I mean, Chance the Rapper released Acid Rap back in 2013 and has subsequently disappeared off the radar. Similar to somebody like Logic, who was an XXL freshman in 2013, being basically mocked all the way into an early retirement, only to come back less than a year later, validating any goodwill people put towards him. I mean, what the fuck happened? This feels like such a drastic shift in circumstance. Obviously, a lot can happen in 10 years, but to see the situation of hip-hop in such a dire state is concerning. Although there is still time for things to change and for the game to shift, it will take a lot of effort, not only from artists to fix things, but for fans to acclimatize to the new music environment. All this to say, what could we expect from GTA 6 in 2025? Since the game will be revisiting Vice City, which is a more Florida/Miami-based landscape, I could definitely see hip-hop undertones less focused on within this game, as the region is not synonymous or as highly regarded when it comes to hip-hop in comparison to states like New York or LA. It could still take inspiration from the more recent Florida waves of hip-hop, such as with Kodak, X, Rick Ross, and Denzel Curry, but that remains to be seen. My main concern is regarding how it will likely shape newer generations of fans. People are already extremely hyped for this game, and so it will likely create interest for new generations to play it, and to therefore be shaped musically, as I and many others were previously. Considering what I had mentioned about the current state of hip-hop, this could be a very worrying situation. However, I think GTA 6's GTA's release presents an opportunity at a time in which it's needed the most. As I said, there is no outright artist that can go toe-to-toe with the likes of Cole, Kendrick, or Drake when it comes to numbers. However, GTA represents a chance for one artist or more to really define themselves amongst a new generation of music/hip-hop fans, and to propel themselves into the spotlight due to the high exposure these games will bring, and have provided for similar artists previously. It is my view that GTA games have already impacted the landscape of hip-hop, and so who is to say they wouldn't be able to do that again? What are your thoughts about hip-hop's evolution since GTA 5? Are you excited for GTA 6? Let me know in the comments below.
All we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ.